March 2025, Iowa City, Iowa. 15,000 people packed Carver-Hawkeye Arena for a basketball game that didn't matter. A WNBA preseason exhibition, the kind that usually draws small crowds and minimal attention. But ESPN broadcast it nationally. Tickets averaged $650. Some courtside seats hit $2,000. When the numbers came in, 1.3 million people had watched from home. More than most playoff games, more than championship finals in some leagues. One player brought them all there, and in doing so, she silenced every critic who'd questioned her for over a year. This is the story of how Caitlin Clark humiliated her haters for good. Where it began, April 2024. The WNBA draft took place in New York on a spring evening. Caitlin Clark walked onto the stage as the #1 pick, knowing exactly what was about to happen. She'd just finished one of the most dominant college careers in basketball history. She broke Pete Maravich's NCAA scoring record that had stood since 1970, led Iowa to back-to-back championship games. Her final college game drew nearly 19 million viewers. She had endorsement deals with Nike, Gatorade, and State Farm. Featured in Time magazine, appeared on Saturday Night Live. This wasn't just basketball hype anymore. This was cultural phenomenon. But inside the WNBA, the reaction was complicated. When asked about the incoming rookies, Diana Taurasi's response was pointed. "Reality is coming," she said. Other veterans echoed similar sentiments. Rookies need to earn their place. No one player built this league. For years, these players had been told women's basketball couldn't draw mainstream audiences, that structural barriers prevented recognition. Then Clark arrives with instant mainstream attention. If audiences would show up for one player, what did that say about why they hadn't shown up before? It was an uncomfortable question, one that most veterans didn't want to confront. The first game, May 14, 2024, Connecticut Sun versus Indiana Fever. The pre-game coverage felt more like an NBA Finals broadcast than a regular season opener. ESPN had its top announcing team, multiple camera angles, extensive player profiles. When the game tipped off, Clark looked like exactly what she was, a rookie playing her first professional game. 20 points on inefficient shooting, 10 turnovers. The Fever lost, and Clark seemed overwhelmed at times by the speed and physicality. But the next morning, the conversation wasn't about her performance. It was about the audience. 2.1 million people had watched. The previous season's finals had averaged 728,000 viewers per game. Clark's debut had nearly tripled that number. It was the highest-rated WNBA broadcast in over 2 decades. Sports media didn't quite know how to process it. Some celebrated the attention, others questioned whether it was sustainable. A few suggested it was a fluke, driven by curiosity that would fade. But then the second game drew 1.8 million viewers. The third hit 1.5 million. By Clark's 5th game, the pattern was clear. This wasn't going away. When criticism turned physical, as the season progressed, something shifted in how opponents treated Clark on the court. The hard screens were expected. Rookies always face physical play, but some of the contact seemed to go beyond normal competition. June 1st became the most talked about example. Chicago Sky guard Chennedy Carter delivered a shoulder check to Clark away from the ball, sending her to the floor. The officials called a common foul. Carter's teammate Angel Reese stood up from the bench and cheered. The incident went viral immediately, not because it was the hardest foul in league history, but because of what it represented. It felt like a statement, like veterans sending a message to the rookie about where she stood. Clark handled it the way she'd handled most criticism. She got up, kept playing, and let her performance do the talking. But the physical play took a toll. By late June, she looked exhausted. The rookie schedule was brutal. The constant travel, the media attention, the pressure of carrying a franchise. It was wearing her down. Then came the Olympic break. The league paused for a month. Clark, who hadn't been selected for Team USA, used the time to rest and reset. The second half, when Clark returned after the break, something had changed. She looked stronger, more confident. The shots that weren't falling earlier in the season started going in. Her decision-making got sharper. In late August, she started putting together games that matched the hype. 25 points with 10 assists, 30 points with 8 assists. The kind of performances that showed she wasn't just surviving in the WNBA, she was starting to thrive. Then, in early September, she broke the single-season assist record. The previous mark had stood for 26 years. Clark passed it as a rookie with weeks left in the season. That record changed the conversation. You can debate whether someone deserves media attention. You can question whether hype is justified, but you can't argue with breaking a record that had survived since 1998. The change in business. While debates about Clark's legitimacy played out in the media, something more fundamental was happening behind the scenes. The business of the WNBA was changing. The Fever's ticket sales told a story that numbers couldn't lie about. Their average attendance had been around 4,000 fans per game the previous season. During Clark's rookie year, it jumped to over 17,000. Other teams noticed their ticket sales spiked on days they hosted Indiana. Not small bumps, significant increases that affected their bottom line. The Chicago Sky looked at their 10,000-seat arena and realized they had a problem. When Indiana came to town, they could sell twice that many tickets. So they moved the game to the United Center, which holds 23,000. It sold out anyway. Washington made the same calculation. Atlanta did too. Teams that normally played in smaller venues were booking NBA arenas specifically for Clark's visits. This wasn't about respect or fairness or who deserved attention. This was about revenue. When you can sell 20,000 tickets instead of 5,000, you move to the bigger venue. Simple economics. The media rights deal. In November, the WNBA announced its new media rights agreement. The details mattered. $200 million per year for 11 years. The previous deal had been worth $25 million annually. League executives didn't explicitly credit Clark for the increase. They talked about growing interest, expanding viewership, and investment in the product. But everyone in the sports media business knew what had changed. Clark's games were averaging over 1 million viewers consistently. Some broadcasts hit 2 million. Networks were competing for WNBA content in ways they never had before. You can negotiate all you want, but when your product suddenly draws 8 times the audience it used to, your rights fees go up. That's how media economics work. Free agency. December brought an interesting development. WNBA free agency opened, and several established players made surprising choices. Dana Bonner was a 2-time champion with multiple teams interested in her services. She chose Indiana. When reporters asked why, she didn't dance around it. "I want to play with Caitlin. This is where the opportunity is." Natasha Howard had offers from playoff contenders. She chose the Fever. Sydney Colson, another championship veteran, made the same decision. These weren't desperate players looking for roster spots. These were professionals with options choosing to play alongside Clark. If the resentment toward her was as widespread as early season incidents suggested, veteran players wouldn't be volunteering to join her team. But they were, because whatever personal feelings existed, the professional opportunity was obvious. The media adjustment. By January 2025, the tone of coverage had shifted noticeably. Analysts who'd questioned whether Clark could succeed were now discussing her MVP chances for the upcoming season. Commentators who'd suggested the hype was overblown were writing features about her work ethic and preparation. Nobody issued corrections or apologies. That's not how sports media works. But the change in narrative was clear. When every metric supports someone's impact, continuing to argue against it starts to look stubborn rather than skeptical. The shift wasn't coordinated. It was practical. When reality consistently contradicts your position, you either adjust your position or lose credibility. In early March, the Indiana Fever announced a preseason exhibition against Brazil's national team at Carver-Hawkeye Arena, Clark's college home court, where she'd broken Maravich's scoring record. This game would become the definitive moment. Tickets sold out within hours, all 15,000 seats. Secondary market prices hit $650 average. Some courtside seats exceeded $2,000. ESPN broadcast it nationally with full production. The atmosphere was electric from warm-ups. Fans who'd watched her college career reliving the magic. Clark started the game running the offense smoothly. Nothing spectacular. Then, midway through the second quarter, she brought the ball up court and kept dribbling past the three-point line, moving toward center court, toward the logo. The crowd recognized it immediately. The exact spot where she'd broken Maravich's record. Everyone stood. The noise level jumped. Clark stopped at the logo, set her feet, launched from 32 feet out. The building erupted. She'd chosen that exact moment, that exact spot. She knew what it meant and delivered it perfectly. When the game ended, the Brazilian national team surrounded Clark. Professional athletes representing their country, asking for selfies and autographs, Olympic-level players, starstruck. When opposing teams treat you like a celebrity they're excited to meet, something's changed. The morning after. The next day, Nielsen released the viewership data. 1.3 million people had watched the exhibition. For context, the 2024 WNBA Finals averaged about 1.6 million viewers per game. Clark's preseason exhibition had nearly matched championship numbers. The NBA's highest-rated preseason game in the past 7 years drew 950,000 viewers. Clark's game beat that by roughly 40%. Baseball's most-watched spring training game ever from 2005 drew 912,000. Clark topped it by nearly 400,000 viewers. And this is where the story reaches its turning point, the moment that answers the title's promise. For over a year, critics had arguments. She's overhyped. College success doesn't translate. The novelty will fade. Fans are casual and temporary. The attention is undeserved. After that Iowa game, every single one of those arguments became impossible to maintain. Think about what those 1.3 million viewers represented. Not people tuning in for a playoff race. Not fans watching because their team was competing. Not viewers drawn by championship implications. 1.3 million people are choosing to watch Caitlin Clark play a meaningless preseason exhibition game. That's not media bias. That's not manufactured hype. That's not temporary curiosity. That's undeniable proof of cultural impact. The critics fall silent. The criticism that had been constant throughout her rookie season stopped almost immediately after those numbers came out. Not with apologies or corrections, just silence. Jamili Hill, who'd written about Clark's popularity being tied to race, moved on to other topics. Christine Brennan, who'd questioned sustainability, stopped publishing skeptical pieces. Analysts who'd predicted she'd struggle simply started covering other storylines. The personalities who'd built platforms questioning her legitimacy couldn't continue without looking foolish. When a preseason game draws numbers that most championship games would envy, arguing the player isn't worth attention becomes indefensible. This wasn't critics gracefully conceding a point. This was being proven so completely wrong that continuing to argue would destroy credibility. That's the humiliation the title promises. Not a single embarrassing moment, but the realization that every prediction was wrong, every critique was baseless, and every alternative explanation collapsed under the weight of evidence. So what did that Iowa game actually prove? On the surface, it was just another exhibition, a preseason tune-up that wouldn't affect any standings or determine any playoff races. But in reality, it was the final, undeniable piece of evidence in a year-long argument, the moment that made every criticism of Caitlin Clark look foolish in retrospect.